in the message. We got Passover coming next month in like 30 days. So we want to be proactive for Passover. I just wanted to say this now so I don't forget at the end, but we want to be proactive for Passover so we can have our spot locked down. We can have our food put together. The sisters is getting their garment game up. Brother Jerome is setting the bar high for y'all. We gotta make sure garment game,
There's some of the brothers Jerome. Y'all sisters.
Go ahead.
Y'all sisters, go ahead. Brother Jerome, get on.
This is from the spring collection. No more
We got the winter collection.
That's a double stitch right there.
Look.
Go ahead and break it out.
This is the Moses collection. This is the Moses line.
As you see, Brother Jerome is for sharp ready. Stand on his head.
Hey, so look here, sisters, y'all got to step it up, man. Y'all let a brother, man, come on now.
Yeah, we got some competition.
Y'all supposed to be that.
Show them the machine you use, Ron. Oh, hand stitch. Hand stitch. Hey, some of it was stitching.
I got to cut you.
He set the bar high. We want to be in our garments. It's Passover. It's a high day, Feast of Unleavened Bread. We want to make sure that we everything decent in order. Like I said, we want to be proactive as far as having our spot locked down, having the menu together, having the food together, and having the funds to do all of these things. That's the really like the first step. So, like I said in the message, we want to try to have a separate collection for Passover, $2-3 from every person, every Shabbat. So then that'll be plenty enough money gathered for us to do what we want to do, so the burden don't fall on any one person to have extra money or to do extra. Like we want to do this as as a unit, as a group. It's very important. Speaking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread is very, very important. And I guess this lesson today would be like a precursor to that. Dealing with unleavened bread. We purging out the leaven and the stuff, and not only in our homes but in our in ourselves. Talking about that doctrine of the Pharisees, that slander, backbiting, and hypocrisy. We want to do away with all these things coming into. We just had the New Year will be popping off end of this month. Pesach coming. We want to prepare ourselves. That's another thing. We have to have the leaven out of the house. So start eating that stuff up, or so we don't have to waste it and toss it out once that time comes. Let's be mindful of that right now, so we won't end up wasting anything. So today's lesson, we're going to talk a bit about slander and gossip, and we're going to end it off with some scripture dealing with unity. Yes. So let's start off in 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, verses 16 and 17. If anybody had a Strongs, we're going to dip into that just a little bit, little tiny. The jot. Tittle. We're going to put a jot or a tittle out there. Charles was doing one job, one tittle, maybe two tittles. A tittle or two. Sorry. Shot and a half. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16. Let's be mindful of the person next to us. We want to keep the side talk down. You know what I'm saying? Let's pay homage unto the Most High. We're gonna deal with these scriptures. Y'all know how I do. Lesson is not gonna be very long. You know, we're gonna do this and get done. So let's like I said, be respectful of one another. Keep the side talking down. Just get to it and we can be done. Go ahead.
The epistle of 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 16. All scripture is given by inspiration of the Most High.
And what is it?
And is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness.
For doctrine, for reproof. Reproof is goes right along with correction, but reproof, being able to look at yourself and make that correction, and for instruction on what the right thing to do in righteousness. Go ahead.
That the man of Yahuwah,
and that includes the woman. Go ahead.
May be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works.
Okay, perfect. Now when we're talking perfect, we're not talking without flaw, because we all have our drawbacks and we all have flaws. But when this perfection that's speaking here, it goes on to say thoroughly furnished. You know what I mean? That's what perfection is. You can't have, like, this wouldn't be a conference room without tables and chairs. It has to be thoroughly furnished, right? We need tables and chairs in order to be, a living room is not a living room, it's not a living room without a sofa, love seat, chair, it has to be thoroughly furnished, which means you have to be equipped. When you're talking about perfection, we're talking about somebody who's equipped with handling these things in righteousness, as far as dealing with these things according to the law and according to Scripture, right? So don't get twisted when it says perfection. And people say, well, I'm not perfect. But nobody is perfect. We're not talking about perfect in the sense of being flawless, but we're talking about perfect in the sense of being equipped or thoroughly furnished with the things of the Most High that we need to be complete, right? All right? So we're going to grab the, right. Let's grab out the Strongs, H1681. H1681. But I just want everybody to keep in mind that the scripture is given by inspiration of the Most High and is profitable, which means there's gain from the doctrine, from the reproof, from the correction. All of these things is so we can thoroughly furnish ourselves with becoming that perfect or that thoroughly furnished person, right? Go ahead.
This is the Strongs, H1681. Divide from 1680 in the sense of furtive motion, slander, defaming, evil report, infamy, slander.
Okay, so we're dealing with slander, and another thing is whispering, right? Like that's when the Brown Drivers Briggs, it describes it as defaming, evil report, or whispering or defaming, an evil report, an unfavorable saying. Like, just for instance, if it's 3 people in a room and 2 of them start whispering to each other, what you think the third person thinks?
They talking about it.
Exactly, right? They talking about it. So, this is that's why it describes it as whispering, because if you should be able to say it out loud if it's not about me, or if it's not something that's negative about me, you should be able to say it out loud, right? So let's start at Exodus 20, and this is one that's key because we deal with this every single week before we pray in. We all say this, and remember that you're going to be charged by the words of your mouth.
That's right.
So the fact that's the whole purpose in reciting the commandments before class every week. I'm not sure if everybody was there when we first decided to do this, but that's the whole point of reciting the commandments. When we first before we start class and before we pray in, we recite the commandments because you're charged by the words of your mouth. Everything that you say, you charged by that. So when we state it, we will have no other mighty ones besides the Most High. We will not bear false witness. We will not make any graven image. We will remember the Shabbat. That all of these things you charging yourself before the Most High, saying, I'm going to do these things, and if I go against the words of my mouth, like, you're going to be held in contempt from the Most High. We're not talking about a court. We're talking about the Most High. He charged you by all of these things that you're saying, so be mindful of what you're saying. Be mindful throughout the week to do the things that we're stating in this Exodus 20 when we read it every single week. Exodus 20 and 16.
The book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse 16. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor.
Now this is really, really key. You should not bear false witness against your neighbor. We're going to get really a little bit in depth into the bearing false witness, but the neighbor part, we're talking about our brothers and our sisters, especially those that we can look in the eye and see on a weekly, a daily, that we can reach out and touch and talk to, that's key when we're talking about our neighbors. But we shouldn't bear false witness, or when Rashid was up here, he said you shouldn't tell lies, but it's specifically telling something that is not true, or a false report, or whisperings, or an unfavorable saying about your brother, or about your sister, or about your neighbor. All of these things fall into bearing false witness. Let's go to Exodus 23 and verse 1.
Book of Shemot, chapter 23 and 1. You shall not raise a false report.
Same thing. Bearing false witness. Raise a false report, right? Read.
Put not your hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness.
So when you bear a false witness, and like I said, you being an unrighteous witness, but you put your hand with the wicked. You basically putting yourself in a position of wickedness. You know what I'm saying? When you're doing these things, you are specifically breaking the Torah. You know what I mean? This is very, very important. Bearing false witness, or having an unfavorable report about somebody, or saying something that's not necessarily true. And we're going to get into a little bit more in depth. Let's go to verse 7.
Verse 7. Keep you far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay you not, for I will not justify the wicked.
So it's saying keep you far from a false matter. So when somebody come at you with this nonsense, like that's the easiest way to shut it down. When somebody come to you saying whatever, if it's out of line, if it's out of order, the easiest way to shut it down is, look, I don't want to hear that. And you know what's going to happen is they're going to stop bringing it to you. And it's something, on a smaller scale, but like my daughter, her mother and I, we're not together, and she'll come to my house and she'll be here with me, and she'll go back and say whatever to her mother, and her mother come calling me, and it's always an argument, like every week, like, why did you do such. And so I find myself arguing with this woman every week for something that my daughter done went back and said. And so I had to tell her, like, listen, you know why you don't never see me calling you, telling you, why did you do this and why did you do that? Because when my daughter come over here and she said, Daddy, my mama said, I say, stop it right there. I don't want to hear nothing your mama said. Because if she has something to say to me, she'll call me. Other than that, don't bring nothing that nobody said over there over here. We don't want to hear that. And I have to explain this to my ex-wife, like, listen, when she come over there saying this stuff, she's 7. Shut her down right there. The only reason she keeps saying it is because you keep entertaining. So it's the same thing. When people bring this stuff to you and you entertaining it, they're going to keep bringing it because they know they got an open vessel that's ready to receive. That's why when somebody have gossip or something like that, you wonder why you always gossiping with this one person in particular, because you always listening. So they're going to keep calling. You know what I mean? They're going to keep coming to you with the nonsense. But if you shut it down, like, listen, I don't want to hear that. I guarantee you they're going to stop calling. They're going to stop reaching out to you. And they're going to find somebody else to hear their nonsense. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 19. Like I said, those things specifically, if you being a recipient of the unfavorable sayings and the false witness, you putting yourself in that same position with the wicked. That's what it says. Get away from a false matter in Exodus 23 and 7. Keep far from a false matter. You don't even want that stuff coming into your vicinity. You don't want nothing to do with it. Because when it go down and it come out, because everything comes to the light, and it come out, your name gonna be thrown right in there with it, right? Well, such and such and such and such knew, and they said blah blah blah. You know, you don't even want yourself being in this body. You don't want yourself being attached to that nonsense. You don't want your name being a part of the garbage, right? Deuteronomy 19 verse 15. There is a way that you deal with things when you witness somebody doing something that is not favorable in the eyes of the Most High. There is a way that it's supposed to be handled. You're not just supposed to, like, it's unlawful for one person to come saying, I saw such and such do such and such, right? That's not lawful. That's not Torah. That's not part of the commandments. But there's a way, and we're about to read a few examples. Verse 15.
Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19 and verse 15. One witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity or for any sin, in any sin that he sins, at the mouth of 2 witnesses or at the mouth of 3 witnesses shall the matter be established.
So it is unlawful. It's telling you right here in the law. Say if I had an ought against my brother, and instead of dealing with him the way the scriptures say, I just go and say, hey, Shofar was doing such and such on the Sabbath. You know, basically saying that he was doing something that was punishable by death. Now, this is in this day and age, in this time. Something that's punishable by death. Now, if they just took me at my word and took, you know, my word, and he would be put to death behind that. So in order to squash that, they had to establish parameters. One person can't come accusing. There has to be 2 or 3 witnesses in order for somebody to be, you know, held accountable for something, right? Read.
If a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before Yahuwah, before the priests and the judges, which shall be in those days.
So if I come accusing Shofar, instead of them just taking me at my word, we both have to go stand before the Most High, before the priests and before the judges, for them to make the decision on the matter. But they have an obligation as well. Read verse 18. Now this is all of our obligation when somebody comes with any type of witness. Before you make a determination that if it's real or if it's false. But this is all of our duties. Verse 18.
Verse 18. And the judges shall make diligent inquisition.
What is a diligent inquisition?
Stir question. Right.
Diligent though.
Right.
Diligent though. Like digging. Right. Go ahead.
Behold, if the witness be a false witness and has testified falsely against his brother, then you shall do to him as he has thought to done to his brother. So shall you put the evil away from among you.
So if it's come to find out that after you do this diligent inquisition, now this was at this time, I just want to make that clear, that if the person who was bringing the witness was found to be a false witness, then they would get the punishment that they had deemed for the other person that they was lying on. Let's go to Deuteronomy 17 and verse 2. This is one that you see quite a bit amongst Israelites, especially those that deal with like social media. You see this a little bit too much in my opinion.
Deuteronomy chapter 17 and verse 2. If there be found among you within any of your gates, which Yahuwah your power gives you, man or woman, that has worked wickedness in the sight of Yahuwah your power, in transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other powers, and worshipped them, either the sun or moon, or any host of Shamaim, which I have not commanded. And it be told you, and you have heard of it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain, that such abomination is worked in Israel.
That's it right there. Start right there. Pause right there. But the whole thing is what it's saying. If you find somebody that fall away from the Most High, right? Notice what it's saying in verse 3. It says, is it verse 4? And if he told to you that these things happen, and you have heard it, and inquired diligently, and behold, it be true, and a certain thing that such an abomination is wrought in Israel. So the whole thing is once you find out, you do the research as it pertains to investigate exactly if this thing is true or not. You can't just see, somebody who put up something that you might not necessarily agree with or something you don't believe in, and automatically you like, they wicked, they worshiping other gods, they doing, you know what I'm saying? Like you see that a lot via social media, like you kind of falling into this category as bearing false witness because you don't know nothing about this person. You ain't even had a conversation with them, and you automatically have deemed them, something that they may not necessarily be. Now this is on a small scale, and it's something real like futile, but you want to just make sure that you clean in all areas. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to get too involved in something like this, and then because you can be held accountable for it. But at this point in time, like I said back here in Deuteronomy, the penalty for that was death. But we know that the penalty is going to be served once the Mashiach returns. Like the people who fall into these categories is going to have to face penalty for these things. So you want to make sure in all these things that you be clean, that your name be found spotless, blameless, right? Because we read in the book of Daniel where the people tried to come up against Daniel, but he was blameless. He hadn't done anything. So they couldn't bear false witness against him in order to have him condemned. You know what I mean? But we're gonna read a few more examples about these sort of things. Let's go to Proverbs 24 and 28. Proverbs.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 24 and verse 28. Be not a witness against your neighbor without cause, and deceive not with your lips.
So if you don't have cause to be a witness, period. And I notice it don't say false, righteous, whatever. But if you don't have cause to witness against your brother, your sister, then it's telling you be not a witness against them without cause, and deceive not with your lips. So even if you do witness something, like I said, there is certain protocol that you have to follow before you can just step out there and say, well, such and such is this and such is that, because it would be deceit found within your own mouth. Let's go to chapter 25 and verse 18.
Proverbs 25 and verse 18. A man that bears false witness against his neighbor is a maul and a sword and a sharp arrow.
Everybody know what a maul is? No? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. What is it when you maul somebody? When somebody get mauled? Yeah, pretty much it's a weapon like a club or something like a beating stick. But it says that a man that bears false witness against his neighbor is pretty much, like I say, a maul, a sword, a sharp arrow. It's a weapon. Yeah, exactly. Let's go to Proverbs 16 and 28.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 16 and verse 28. A froward man sows strife.
Does anybody tell me what a froward man is? Reverse, wicked, deceitful. Yep. Go ahead. But he said he soweth strife. Go ahead.
And a whisperer separates chief friends.
Now that whisperer, like I said, is the same thing as slander. A whisperer or a slanderer, he separates sheep friends, because I don't know, how long, y'all been dealing with life itself, but I'm sure some of us have bear witness to somebody who came in and sowed discord amongst friends, and then now these people are not friends anymore because of a third party that said something that might not necessarily was true, or it was, or if they said it before the person went to the other person that got understanding on it and saw, well, what's really going on, they just took this person at their word and I'm not dealing with them. You know what I mean? But in proper order, we're supposed to do things properly as far as like if you have a problem with a person or fault, you're supposed to go to them directly, right? Let's go to Psalms 101 and verse 5.
The book of Psalms, chapter 101 and verse 5. Whoso privately slanders his neighbor, him will I cut off. Him that has a high look and a proud heart will not I suffer.
So this is talking about slandering privately, like how the saying go, somebody that throw rocks and then hide their hand, right? But it's like a situation that was dealt with where you say that somebody would try to say something about somebody, but tried to do it without revealing who they were, right? That is unlawful. That is sneaky. That is not right. And according to what the Most High is saying, he's saying that person will get cut off, right? That is not right to do that type of thing. To try to put somebody out there, but without, if you can say something about somebody, you should be able to say it to their face. And you should allot the person that you're saying something about to be able to face you. If you have something to say about somebody, you should allow that person to be able to come to you and say, hey, that's not true, or this is what happened, or this is how it really happened. Understanding is one of the best things that we have. So you definitely, like I said, another thing, if somebody come at you with that type of stuff, and they not revealing who they are, or they not, don't even acknowledge you, because that'll shut it down right then and there. If somebody comes to you and they can't say, well, or if they say, oh, well, I heard such and such and such and such, and you ask them, well, how you know that? Oh, I can't say. Don't even, why you say it to me? You know what I'm saying? There's no point even bringing it up. If you can't tell me, all of these things is like rules to life itself. You know what I mean? It's to keep you out of drama, keep you away from the nonsense and the garbage. People shouldn't come at you with this kind of stuff if you acting accordingly. If you stopping them before they start, you shouldn't even be dealing with a lot of the nonsense that go on here. Right? Let's go to Proverbs 6 and 16.
Book of Proverbs, chapter 6 and verse 16. These six things does Yahuwah hate. Yeah, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. A heart that devises wicked imaginations.
A heart that devises wicked imaginations, which means that if you thinking to do wickedness, right? This is coming from the heart, right? This is things that the Most High himself hates. Read.
Feet that be swift in running to mischief.
And running to mischief. As soon as you see nonsense going on, you want to be right in the middle of what happened. What happened? Such and such. You quick to run over there to see what's going on. When I see nonsense, I be trying to walk the other way. I ain't even trying to look. I don't care nothing about that. I be so numb to stuff. When I find out that it's going on, I be like, straight up, that happened? Like, because I don't even be, like, I don't know, like, trying to have my blinders on when it comes to that kind of garbage. Verse 19.
A false witness that speaks lies, and he that sows discord among brethren.
He that sows discord among brethren. All these things do the Most High himself does he hate, right? Because when you go to, when you're a false witness and you speak lies, like I said, in order to be a witness, in order to witness somebody that's doing something that's improper, it has to be in order by 2 or 3 witnesses, right? But if you come saying that somebody did something, what do that make you? An accuser, right? Let's look a little deeper into that. Go to Luke 16:1. When you say that somebody did something, you're accusing them of something, right?
The book of Luke, chapter 16 and verse 1. And he said also unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man, which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods.
So somebody came to this rich man and accused this steward of wasting goods, right? Let's go to the Strong, G1225, and see what this accused is.
G12 and 25. Diabolo. To traduce or accuse.
To traduce or accuse. Now I have to look at this traduce up, because I ain't know what it means.
It also means to illuminate.
See, I don't know what that means. But traduce means to speak maliciously or falsely of. Slander, to defame, to traduce one's character. Now jump down to 12:28.
12:28. Diablos. A traducer, specifically ha-shaitan, false accuser, devil.
Where do it say that it comes from? What's the root of that?
Diablo.
From 12:25, right?
Yep.
So when you come accusing, this is what you know. An accuser is specifically a devil, right? The same way, go to Matthew 16 and 23. (16 and 22).
The book of Matthew, chapter 16 and verse 22. Then Keeper took him and began to rebuke him, saying, be it far from you, master, this shall not be to you. But he turned and said to Keeper, get you behind me, ha-shaitan. You are an offense unto me, for you savor not the things that be of Yahuwah, but those that be of men.
Now, is in this verse, is Peter, is he Satan? No, he's not Satan himself. However, the persona that he's taken on by not speaking the things of the Most High and coming against the things that's supposed to happen. Because in the verse prior, this is the Mashiach saying, you know, I got to go to Jerusalem and be crucified, and all these things have to take place. And Peter tried to rebuke him like, no, not you. This ain't for you. You ain't going to, this is not going to happen. And the Mashiach had to stop him like, listen, you speaking against the things that's written. You know what I mean? So when you become an accuser, you fall into this category of what a devil or a Satan, right? Let's go to Luke 11. I want to show y'all an example of this. 11 and verse 53.
Book of Luke, chapter 11 and verse 53. And he said these things unto them. The scribes and Pharisees began to urge him vehemently and to provoke him to speak of many things, laying wait for him and seeking to catch something out of his mouth.
So what?
That they might accuse him.
That they might accuse him. And we already know what the Pharisees and the scribes, we already know what type of people they was, right? But they was looking to catch him up in the word so they could try to accuse him of something, or come against them as an adversary, right? Let's go to Matthew 5 and 11. Because when you are a recipient of these things, you have to understand that it's not a sorrowful thing. It's really not. Because knowing that what this verse in particular states of what you have in store for you being one of these type of people that's a recipient of slander and accusation, false accusation. Go ahead.
Matthew chapter 5 and verse 11. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake.
For my sake. So the same way these people tried to come against the Mashiach and accuse him falsely, it's going to happen to us too. But it's not a curse, it's a blessing, right? Because they're doing it for his sake, for the sake that you dealing with this truth and you following the Messiah, right? And you following the Most High. It's for their sake. So, it's actually a blessing, or you're increased because of this, right? Let's go back to the Torah, to Leviticus 19. Matter of fact, skip that. Skip that. Let's go to James 5 and 19. James 5 and 19.
The book of James, chapter 5 and verse 19. Brethren, if any of you do err from the truth, and one convert him, let him know that he which converts the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sins.
So if we get to the point where somebody may have fallen away from the truth, they ain't error from falling away from the truth, it shouldn't be to the point where I'm not dealing with them, they're not dealing with this truth, I'm not dealing with them. Because there is great reward in showing this person their error, right? There's great reward in showing this person their sin or their transgression. So when somebody fall away from the truth, it shouldn't be a shunning of this person, but it should actually be more of a reaching out to this person, right? Let's go to Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1.
The epistle of Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, you which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted.
Brethren, if any man be overtaken in a fault, which means, like I said, all of us have flaws, right? And we all go through things, and if any of us be overtaken in one of these flaws, which means that you fall victim to these things, right? I mean, because everybody wasn't born in this, everybody wasn't raised up properly in this truth. Everybody, had a life prior to coming in this truth that you was like subject to, right? We have vices, we have things that we dealt with before coming in this truth, and sometimes when life get tough, when life get hard, we'll fall back to that. We'll revert to that old man. And it's not because, that you're any less than what the Most High had deemed you to be, but it's just because sometimes things get hard and burdensome, and you might fall off a bit, right? But when it states that, like if you see your brother has fallen off, it says to restore him in a spirit of meekness or a spirit of humility, considering yourself, right? Not being high-minded in the fact that, man, you fall, I know I never fall, because we all might fall off at one point in time. But the fact that we can get back up on our feet, and the fact that we got brothers and sisters around us that will restore us to that position that they once held us in, and not necessarily a physical position of being, stature amongst the people, but I'm talking about a position in their mind, putting you back in the position that you once was in. This is forgiveness, right? Like just like if you have a close friend or was in a relationship or something, and somebody do something that trespass, right? They mess up the trust, right? They break the trust. Now, when you restore them in the spirit of meekness, like you have to forgive those transgressions, right? And restore them even in your head. You have to allow that trust to be rebuilt. You know what I mean? It don't happen overnight, but the trust can be rebuilt. Relationships can be restructured and reformed, right? And eventually the bond can be even that much stronger, eventually. But it says considering yourself, because at one point in time when you fell off, or if it's ever happened to you, you want somebody to do it for you. You want somebody to restore you in a spirit of humility, not browbeat. Not every time something happened, they throwing it back in your face, right? That's not humility. But in a spirit of humility, a spirit of meekness, right? Verse 2.
Verse 2. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Hamashiach.
And so fulfill the law of Hamashiach. Bear ye one another's burdens. The scriptures say, confess your faults one to another and pray for each other, right? It's not for somebody, if I come and I'm dealing with heavy burdens, right? And I talk to my brother and say, listen, man, I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z. It's not for him to go and tell somebody else, right? It's for him to bear the burden with me, to try to help me through it, right? That was my whole point in reaching out in the first place, because you're looking for somebody to help. You're looking for help, right? You're not, sometimes it's too tough to deal with on your own. And sometimes when you reach out to a brother, they can say, hey, bro, I dealt with that too. I went through X, Y, and Z myself, man. And, in order to get through it, I did this, that, and that. She's bearing the burden with me, helping me walk this thing out, helping me carry this heavy load, right? Verse 3.
For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself.
Because if you're getting high-minded to the point like, man, you let that do, you fell off on that. What I'm saying? You get that's high-minded, right? And you thinking that yourself that that could never happen to me. But that's it's you deceiving yourself. You deceiving yourself because, like I said, everybody have a vice. Everybody has had or has a vice or something, or a trigger or something that could draw them, to stumble, a stumbling block, right? Let's go to Leviticus 19. 19 and verse 16. We're going to go back to the law. Leviticus 19 verse 16. But we got to deal with this too. Not just bearing false witness, but also bearing tales.
Leviticus 19 and 16. You shall not go up and down as a talebearer among your people, neither shall you stand against the blood of your neighbor. I am Yahuwah.
So what is a talebearer? Say again. I can't hear you. Alright.
Basically, somebody coming to you saying something, then going to somebody, they talking to you about saying something about you.
Gossip.
Gossip, backbiting, talebearing, slander, false witness. All these things fall under the same thing. But in the law, it's telling you, don't go up and down as a talebearer among the people, right? Not even that. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. Second Thessalonians 3 and 11.
The epistle of 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 11. For we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly.
How do they walk?
Disorderly.
They're out of order, right? Read.
Working not at all, but are busybodies.
Let's do it. What is now? a busybody. Now that back in the day, that you used to get sat down. Stop being a busybody, right? Being a talebearer, a tattletale, right? These things. I mean, a lot of these principles came straight from the book, right? A lot of these principles came straight from the book. Nobody likes a busybody. You know what I'm saying? Nobody likes a tattletale, right? Let's go to 1 Timothy 5 and 13.
First Timothy chapter 5 and verse 13. And with all they learn to be idle, wandering about from house to house.
Going from person to person, house to house, right? Read.
And not only idle, but tattlers also, and busybodies, speaking things which they ought not.
Speaking things which they ought not. Let's go to Proverbs 11 and 13. Speaking things which they ought not. Like I said, it's that gossiping, backbiting spirit, that's not of the Most High. And like I said, it's distinctly against the law. What we read in Leviticus. Proverbs 11 and 13.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 11 and verse 13. A talebearer reveals secrets, but he that is of a faithful spirit.
He that is what?
He that is of a faithful spirit.
Of a faithful spirit does what?
Conceals the matter.
Conceals the matter. So like I said, like I used the example before, if I'm dealing with something, a heavy burden, and I come to my brother and I'm talking to him about it, and he kind of giving me good counsel and wise counsel, be it, whatever the situation is, it's not for him to be a talebearer and go, tattling house to house, telling my situation, but it says that one that is faithful in spirit, being faithful in spirit, he would conceal the matter between me and him, right? The fact that I've even reached out to him, counsel between he and I, that's a faithful spirit. That's somebody, because when somebody else, when you find out, if you get to the point where you find out when somebody else know your business, you feel like the person who you shared it with was unfaithful, right? Like you feel cheated. Like, how could you do that? Like, I shared my innermost secrets with you. Like, what I'm saying? I'm dealing with all this stuff, and I shared that with you, and you told somebody? How could you do that to me? You know what I'm saying? So a faithful spirit would be one that could hold that in. You don't, like you say, a talebearer reveals secrets. Let's go to Proverbs 26 and verse 20.
Let's go a precept to that. Sirach, chapter 19. Sirach, chapter 19, and we're going to start at verse 6. Because my Ak was just talking about somebody telling you something in secret and you revealing it, right? It reads, he that can rule his tongue shall live without strife. And he that hateth babbling shall have less evil. Rehearse not unto another that which is told unto you, and you shall fare never the worse.
Rehearse not unto another that which is told. They say it fall right into the same thing. He that can rule his tongue shall live without strife, and he that hates babbling shall have less evil. That was the same thing that I'm saying. To hate babbling, when somebody come at you with the nonsense, shut it down. And you're going to have less garbage in your life, right? Let's get that Proverbs 26 and 20. Because this go right along with it, hand in hand. Precept indeed. Proverbs 26 and verse 20. That was just Sirach 19 and 6.
They can take it all the way down to 11.
19 and 6 through 11.
It's verse 8, same chapter. Whether it be to friend or foe, talk not of other men's lives, And if you cannot without offense, reveal them not. Verse 10. If you heard a word, let it die with you.
Say what?
If you heard a word, let it die with you. And be bold. It will not burst you.
It will not burst you. It's going to be all right.
A fool travail with a word as a woman in labor of child.
Now you see that? A fool travail. A fool travail with the word as a woman with child. Like a woman, when she's in travail about to have that baby, the one thing she want to do is what?
Get it out.
Get it out. She got the man. I got to get this thing up out of me so fast. It's so fast. That's how a fool is with a word. When you tell a fool something, that's how you can tell a fool. Because when you can tell a fool when they come and they itching to just, man, like I can tell you. You know what I'm saying? They say that's how they gotta get it out so bad, just like they was pregnant trying to get that baby out. Right. Let's go to yeah, you ain't heard that. Proverbs 26 and 20.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 26 and verse 20. Where no wood is, there the fire goes out. So where there is no talebearer, the strife ceases.
The same, it's like I said, it goes the same thing. You can't have fire without fuel. And when somebody comes with the tale, you know, they come with the gossip, that's what they got the igniter. They trying to ignite the flame. You the fuel. If you stop it and like, nah, I ain't trying to hear that, and you cut the fuel off, they can't never start the fire. The same thing. Where there's no talebearer, the strife cease. It is stopped right there with them. All of it. Like, especially amongst the body, amongst the assembly, you know, we got to be able to squash these things out and deal with each other according to the script. You know what I'm saying? When you allow these things to start, ain't no telling where it's going to end. You know, but it ends at the person that can just say, hey, let's cut that short. We can cut this conversation short. I don't even want to hear about that. You know, we can stop it right there because it shouldn't be that way, especially among the body. You know what I'm saying? It's that way in the world because that's how people are in the world. That's what people get off with in the world. And that's what people who don't really have a real life, that's what they get off on. You know what I'm saying? Telling something that belongs to somebody else. Or, you know, just being a gossip and a busybody and a gadabout and a talebearer. You know, that's their thing. So we need to, you know, amongst the body, amongst the believers, man, we need to squash these things out. And we need to let that stuff rest and die quickly. Let's go to Matthew chapter 18 and verse 15. We'll deal with forgiveness a bit. 18 and 15.
That's protocol right here. Book of Matthew, chapter 18 and verse 15. Moreover, if your brother shall trespass against you.
So if your brother shall trespass against you, now if you happen to deal with a situation where somebody trespass against you or they doing these things and you happen to be the victim of it, don't mean that you got to completely write them off because, like I say, forgiveness is in order. Like we read in the first beginning, all scripture is good for reproof and correction and instruction in righteousness. So the fact that if they you know, come against you with these things and you hold a grudge against them, then now you in here. So go ahead.
Moreover, if your brother shall trespass against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone.
How you do it?
Go and tell him his fault between you and him alone.
So if I got...
What you just said, was you saying like, if she tell me something and then I'll be mad at the person from what she told me, I'm in fault too because I'm mad about what she told me?
Well, not necessarily if you're mad, but this is the protocol to handle it. If like, say, this is just an example. This is not true. If Sister Pat tell your mom something about you, and then your mom come back and say, well, you know, Sister Pat said, and you have anger towards Sister Pat for whatever it is, you supposed to go there.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. This is the protocol. Rather than harbor that unforgiveness in your heart, because that's what's going to bring you into error. That's what's going to cause you, to be in error. Is if you don't follow the protocol, because she was out of line for saying it to your mom rather than saying it to you. However, in order to rectify the situation, you have to make sure you do things in proper order. Go ahead.
Saying what was said wasn't even true. And it shows the discord between two close, intimate friends. You know what I mean?
So really, all three will be in error.
Right.
She in error for telling it, she in error for telling it, and you will be in error for keeping it. Like, can't stand Sister Pat.
Right. Okay.
I heard Sister Pat had twins. It was in the word.
Go ahead. Verse 15. Yeah, verse 15 again.
Oh, give me that switch.
Moreover, if your brother shall trespass against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone.
So, with the trespass, if you go and you speak to her, alone, go ahead.
If he shall hear you, you have gained your brother.
And Sister Pat is like, you know what, Brittany, you right. I should have did that. I should have just came to you. I'm sorry. I apologize. Right? You have gained a sister, and now y'all can squash it. It's over with. Everything is out on the table. And that's really the easiest way to kill anything, is to put everything out on the table. Just let it be, everything be out there. Go ahead, verse 16.
But if he will not hear you, then take with you one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established.
Now that's what we read in the law earlier in the book of Exodus, that if you come to her and she don't hear you, then take you 2 or 3 witnesses, and take your mom with you because she's witness, and then you take maybe like one of the brothers or one of the elder sisters with you because you feel like this is the path in error, and you want to get everything out on the table, and you want to squash it. You want things to be over with, right? Go ahead.
Verse 17. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the congregation. But if he neglect to hear the congregation, let him be unto you as a heathen man and a publican.
So you have followed protocol. You done spoke to her personally and said, hey, I didn't like when you said, or did you say whatever? And she's like, listen, get out of my face with all that. I don't want to hear that. And you say, hey, I need y'all to come and talk to Sister Pat because I tried talking to her solo and it didn't work. And she like, listen, all y'all can go and do something. I ain't trying to hear none of that. And then you bring it before the assembly and you say, hey, I'm having an issue. This is the issue, da, 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 da. And she like, look, man, forget y'all. I ain't trying to hear none of that. I ain't never liked you anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, but then it's on her. You know what I'm saying? It's like, she, like I said, she'd be as a heathen or a publican, like, see, all right, you ain't got to be here. You know what I'm saying? If that's going to bring the root of the situation out, she ain't never liked none of us anyway. What you even here for? You know what I mean? So most likely she ain't coming back. Well, she ain't going to be back. Well, what's the point of you being back? There ain't nobody, that thing, it'll be done work itself out through the, through the whole situation.
Nehemiah said you can lay hands on him.
Just want to beat somebody else. Let's go to Luke 17.
I said no such thing.